Mm-hmm.
So,
Totally agree
all
with
right.
that.
So from this point, man, let's talk. You can introduce. You can do the whole thing. I just want a little warm the crowd up here for Peter, man. PKW Media. I love this guy. He's awesome in terms of just knowledge and accomplishments and energy. Always with a good message. Highly competent skill set in his field. Just an accomplished human being. He's our producer. This guy's going to bring a wealth of knowledge here. So I'm hoping you're going to guide the audience through a very, very good journey on production and some ideas. So why don't we do that, Peter?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Let's we'll add Peter here. So yeah, Peter with Peter K. Weiner with PKW Media Solutions. It is.
Hey guys, good to be here. So excited about Business Battleground. It's really all I want to talk about today.
Amen to that.
Well, I noticed that we asked for the questions to talk about Peter. All his questions are about us. So I actually texted him a few minutes ago. I'm like, "You sure you want to talk about us?" Like, and I know, like,
well, you know,
I don't want to use the example. I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm about delivering, and this show is something that we're all going to be delivering, and I'm extremely excited about it. We are breaking the mold. We are setting a new standard for programming on the platform that we're on. And Julianne's probably already talked about that a little bit, but there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on the show, and we want to make it something extremely, extremely worthwhile and entertaining, and that's going to really promote the businesses that are involved. And I'm just so excited about it. So shoot away on the questions, because I'm
gonna step out. I'm gonna let you guys go back and forth, and I'm just gonna watch. So I'll catch up with you guys in about a half hour.
Thanks, man. So all right, so Peter, you and I have known each other for a number of years, and we met through a coaching circle. I would say almost a side door to what we're doing now. And this is one of those. I bring that up again because going back to where we started with Chris this morning, and we talked about it with Steve, and we've talked about everybody, is really up leveling into a different room, into a different space. So this relationship came from a different room altogether, entirely, but we've managed to maintain that relationship over the years. And now something, and we joke about it all the time because Peter and I talk a lot. We joke about it of the, he's finally in some of my crazy, and, finally got into that room. So like, this is where, how do I want to state this? Like, we always talk about that, like some people burn bridges and they just let things go and they don't follow up and let those relationships fall away. Well, not just from we just want to stay friends, but you never know. Like, you never know when a relationship's going to come to fruition. Like Joel was just talking about the follow-up process with clients and customers. It's not different with us in this relationship mold of being able to do this. Did I even remotely think several years ago when Peter and I first met that what I was going to need the most from Peter several years later was executive production knowledge?
I knew it.
Not even remotely did I think that was the thing, and yet that's where we are today. So I wanted to just kind of bring that to light for our audience to just, it isn't about where your business is today. It's about meeting the people of where your business is going. Like, where's my business going to be in 5 years? Who do I need to know 5 years from now? So I would encourage you to have that thought process. So even right now, we're thinking about the rooms we need to be in 5 years from now, based on the projects that we're working on and the things that we're doing. Who do we need to know today so that we can make sure that relationship is intact in 5 years? So that's me prattling on for a while, and that's probably too much. But so looking at what you're building now with the extensive experience that you've got, and that's the reason we started having this conversation, is because I was out of my element, out of my wheelhouse. There's things I'm great at, and that side is not it. And I had to understand that. And I had to call Peter one day and say, is this possible? And then he's been largely really incredibly intuitive into this creative style. So this is, we're going to use Battleground as the example, because that's the project we're working on. That's the thing.
Battleground is the example. Battleground is it's creating its own genre. And that's exciting. And that's exciting. What that genre is, it's taking all the business knowledge, all the promotion knowledge that we have and all the coaches that are involved have, and putting it into a physical product that people can enjoy and benefit from, and give our contestants the opportunity to have more exposure than is even fathomable, thanks to Juliana, what she's doing and how she's getting people in front of people. So, and tuning it up. I mean, there's a lot of shows that are coming out right now, and they're great shows, but they're not breaking the mold as far as genre goes. And that's kind of, that's where Jake's genius comes from, because he created this model. He realized it had to be visually interesting. He realized that you can promote a business and be a part of a program where you're both growing and getting promoted at the same time. And that's what's happening here. And we're making it interesting. That's my part, because I will get bored if it's boring, and I don't like being bored.
Well, and there's a good point. And Julianne said that earlier in this conversation. You've got to be entertained in order for it to be entertaining. So Absolutely. The same thing is true. Is if it's boring, I'm going to be bored. 100%. And I agree with that. So like in this production piece, so that when people are thinking about starting a TV show, starting a podcast, because plenty of our audience is out there like, well, I can do what these guys are doing. I can do the talking heads thing. Yes, you can. There's lots of technology. You are actually producing another one of our folks that was on today, Jen. You're working with her to help produce her show at a higher production value, higher production quality than what we can do at home.
Right.
Like we just know that, and well, that's a really nominal way to say that. It's way above and beyond that. So let's look at this from a basic standpoint. Let's start there. If somebody wants to start a show today, but they are not a producer, they're not a video editor, they're not a sound mixer, they're not a script writer, they don't have all those things. Like, what advice would you give them? Like starting they're not going to be able to take on the project we're taking on yet. They're not there. They've got to what do they need to understand before they can step to there?
Well, there's a few basic things. The first one is just, and I'm a terrible example of this today, but have really good lighting, really good sound, and make sure that you're well framed and that you're heard. That is the most basic thing in the world. Bad video is worse than no video. People aren't going to watch your show if you don't have those things. The other thing is you want to package it well. So you want to have a nice opening. You want to have some consistent graphics and some music and things like that require just a little bit of technical knowledge. Now, if you're just doing a talk show and it's fairly basic, and you can get in front of the camera and you can make it engaging and you can have your guests engaged, not hard to do that. But if you're working with a producer that can just make it look like television, and it's not as complicated as you might think, we're not doing Game of Thrones here. It's getting a certain quality level and a certain entertainment value, and just making sure that your graphics packages and your music and all that stuff and your segmenting of your show are all in sync and all make sense and all support each other and aren't fighting each other. And these are not crazy long or expensive things to do. They're nice touches you can do. Now, Jake and I are doing something totally different. We are producing a much more complicated, multifaceted type program. But even if you're doing something simple, working with a professional, or at least getting consultation from a professional, which I also do, will get you that much farther ahead and get people watching your show. I can't help you if your content's no good. If your content's no good, it doesn't matter. You can put it in a nice package. Maybe someone will watch it once or twice and then go, oh, wait a minute. It looks good, but wait a minute. So if you have decent content and you have confidence that your show is worth watching and that you are worth watching, which most people are in that category, getting the help that you need, getting the graphics packages that you need, even getting the creation help that you might need with that is going to push you ahead, and it's going to create a program that people are interested in and that people are going to stay with.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And we talk, nobody at any point today, and in almost any that we've ever talked about, any show we've ever done, any conference we've ever done has said, just whatever random crap you want to throw out there, people are going to watch it. So you're right from a content perspective. So I would go. Let's stay on the technical side. Let's stay in the production
Okay.
side, because we can back up into. But we've talked about that a bunch today. And what's important? It's what does your audience want to watch? What does the audience want to see? What do they want to see right now? Is one of the questions. What do I need to talk about? You can go down that road. So let's assume we have good content.
Right.
So we've got good content, and we want to do better than the average bear. Dating myself really badly there. We want to do better than the average bear from a production level. We can start out in streaming TV, and we could run, just standard basic setup. Like if you were going to tell them, here's the 3 things you got to have, and then we can go beyond that. What would be the 3 pieces? We said good lighting.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the representation of good lighting?
If we want to get more broad, I would say, yeah, number 1, just make sure that you look good and sound good. That's obvious. And then have your graphics package intact and have it support your show. And that includes sponsorship and whatever other elements you want to have. And then the other thing is have consistency of segments. So when people watch the show, they know what they're going to get. They know when they're going to get it. And they become, even if it's not a conscious thing, they become used to that. The shows that you like have certain formulas that they follow or structures. Now, if they're creative enough, it's always interesting, and you can't anticipate what's going to happen or where it's going to go, but you always know, okay, the beginning of the show is kind of going to establish like this, and then we're going to have the segment in the middle that does that, and then it's going to resolve at the end. And people like that consistency. And usually when it's story-based or story-centered, it's even better. So I would say keep your stories in there, keep your consistency in there, have it be technically sound, and have a nice solid opening and closing and bumper packages and things like that, because that's what really gives it that television bounce. If you don't have that, or if it's really cheesy or bad or inconsistent with what you're doing, it's only going to hurt you. It's like anything else. So I've worked with a few different people, and sometimes all I've done is create graphics packages, and it just kind of pushed their show forward. And and then other shows I'm doing the whole shows and just putting them together. But initially did have to create those concepts and did have to go through that process of creating the technical, what kind of camera are we going to use? Where's the sound going to come in? What are the graphics packages going to look like? How long is the opening? How long is the end? How long is the show? How much footage do we need to have the show be that long? I wish I could give you simple answers to all this stuff, but
and that's actually, I'm glad you don't. I'm glad you're not giving me simple answers, because we both know it's not that simple. Like it takes effort. One of the things Peter says all the time, triple redundancy. Like all the time. I hear him say it constantly, and we're using it in data management. As far as just where the storage is going to go, we got triple redundancy. When we're doing the basic recordings, triple redundancy. I've filmed with Peter before to where we were walking around and we had 3 different ways of capturing sound to make sure we captured the sound, to be able to just be able to get it, because I didn't understand it before. Like I really didn't understand it before, because that's not my universe. But the fact is, if you're on location doing a shoot for something, or like today at the conference is a great example. This is all live. Everything is happening real time. If we don't capture it, there is no director going, cut, let's restart it, let's redo it. You've got one shot. You've got one shot to capture whatever you're gonna catch. And I personally love that. Like I think organically it creates much more interest for me in my world. So that's why we've, with Michael and I designed what we did in Battleground as we went forward, because we had to say what's different, what's interesting, what's not been done, because that's what.
Let's go to this Battleground as an example. Let's go through it, because what's happening with that is we are making it contestant centric. So we have their stories, and we have production teams that are covering them and covering their stories. And then we have them going through their process with a confession cam. And then we have the coaches commenting on their progress. And then we have the actual coaching sessions. And then we have Jake and Mike doing the introductions and the commentaries and the recap. So we have a lot of elements dancing around in a way to tell a story and tell it from multiple angles. And we're not going to have to create drama. This is going to be real. These are real things that are happening. And this is all about supporting the businesses and having them go through the pain and the pleasure of the coaching process and seeing what they get at the end of the 12 weeks. It's not an island elimination thing. It's you're all champions. This is the biggest champion of the champions. And I love that about this show. I really do. And I love the fact that there's so many aspects to it that you're never going to sit there looking at a talking head or staying in any one place for too long, but it's all going to support that central theme. It's all going to come together in a cohesive single story of the success of these contestants and the success of the coaches that are guiding them through. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah. So in that, from I guess we could say tactical standpoint, logistics standpoint of what it's taking to do this. So obviously, and our entire audience met all of our battleground coaches today. Every one of our battleground coaches was on here today. So we had Melissa, we had Chad, we had Jen Loving, and we had Anthony Perez. They're all coaches along with Michael and I in this. You guys met a bunch of our contestants today during the contestant panel. You have met, at this point, you have met our producer in Peter. You have met our web dev team in Joel. Probably the only person today, I think the only person today not involved in a technical standpoint is probably first thing this morning. We had one person, I think, today that it probably is not directly related to the show. So let's look at logistics of what this all took to put together. Like this is, and I've said it before, this is out of my wheelhouse to manage all of it. This is taking a team to put together at scale of what we're working on doing. And it's taking additional subcontractors. It isn't just being done in-house, because so this was one of those spaces. So Peter mentioned we've got the coaching sessions, right? So those look like this. That can be done in-house. We can manage that. We can take that data, we can put it in a Dropbox, which then requires a mountain of organization, because you've got different segments, different coaches, different spaces, different folders. I have a person that does that specifically. That's their job. And Peter has somebody that goes out and finds that. So then we have, as Peter said, confession cams, which you guys have all seen on every show, every reality TV show since Survivor did it all in the first place. Everybody has that 20-degree angle talking to the camera guy that doesn't actually exist, that's not there, answering of what they're going to do in the next thing. Every one of those angles exists. So that is a component. And that was something that we decided as a creative team to implement into the show because it's familiar.
Right.
The audience, like Peter talked about earlier, from a consistency standpoint, what is a consistency that all reality TV shows have? Confession cam, 20-degree angle. That's it right there.
Right.
So we had to put that in there. That requires organization. Whole separate set of folders. And then we've got this, the in-person.
But outside of the whole organization thing, it's really all about how it's pieced together in the end.
And then, and
so when you're watching it, you're not necessarily thinking this component, that component. It's all together, and it all makes sense as a single story.
And I'm coming to that, right? And this is where I want people to understand. This is just not like, oh, I filmed it and I farmed it out and it got done. We have a third component, which is the professional film crews that have to go on site all across the country. We have contestants all over the world, quite frankly. You guys saw Corey, he's in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. See, I can't even say it. That's where Corey is. So we've got to film that there. We've got to then be able to aggregate all of those different professional filming pieces into a set of folders. So then now it's all in a big pile of folders. Right. It's in this giant Dropbox of doom. Now somebody has to go through it. Somebody's got to get in there. So is that going to be me and Mike? No, it can't be me and Mike. So this is where, the expertise of how to do it. They talk to the handler or the producer. Yeah, that's exactly it. So this is where we've got additional leverage, additional help. And this is where PKW Media came into this. Well, they came into it through a lot of it, helped us build the organization of who's got to do what, all the pieces that got to be there. We helped us create what do the on-site film crews have to have from equipment standpoint? What do the shot lists look like? let's be really clear that it's a very complex build, and you've got to have somebody that understands it. Like I'm great at 30,000 foot view. Like I'm really good at 30,000 foot view. That is my wheelhouse. And execution at the ground level, you've got to be able to have the leverage. And that's where we had to go to Peter and say, this is my vision. This is where we want to go. This is what Mike and I are thinking. This is what we want to build. Will this work? How does it work? What are the components? So we mentioned this morning. We've built the highway. But in order to build the highway, you had to strip back all the grass. You had to pull all the gravel. You had to truck a bunch of stuff in to build the interstate. We haven't even opened the dumb thing yet for cars to go down. There's no lights. There's no paint. There's no striping. So, I mean, I would say it from the outside, it probably looks like a very messy project. And yet, how are we pulling it off? We're pulling it off with leverage. We're going to pull it all together because we've got the PKW Medias. We've got that producer that understands and could say, okay, this is how this is all going to go along. And then this is where the real magic of what Peter does. And this is what I feel is really undersold in this moment is Peter's superpower has always been to be able to tell a story we didn't know actually existed or needed told. Like he can see it. Like that's just one of those spaces. So from an executive producer standpoint, like, yes, there's a vision in my head what episode 1 looks like. I already know I'm going to be surprised of what it's actually going to look like, of what it's going to be. I mean, it's going to follow as a creator, right? And we're just having this conversation overall. As a creator, I have a vision. Yeah, Peter could tell a story you didn't know existed. It's absolutely true. As a creator, I've got a vision. This is what I think it looks like. It looks like Shark Tank meets Apprentice meets Wicked Tuna meets Survivor Nobody Gets Kicked Off the Island meets The Repair Shop meets Great British Baking Show, right? You can smash all these things together, and that's how I think the flow should go. Well, who does that make sense to? Peter. Like I could describe that to just about damn near anybody else, and they'd look at me like off his meds. But that's just how it would go. But this is the true superpower of working with somebody like Peter to be able to tell the story you really didn't know you needed to tell with the solutions in the background. So, I mean, how many, it's going to vary, but I mean, we're talking in order to produce. So here's not a trick question. How many hours of production to do what we're doing will it take to produce one 30-minute segment? Just on the back end, not including filming.
Yeah. It'll take longer at the beginning.
Well, sure.
Yeah. So the first couple episodes is unpredictable, but once you get into a flow and once you know what the show is and it's making sense, can probably post at least a show and a half per week once we have all the elements and we know what we're doing. Something like that. So if you're ambitious as a host or as a show creator or whatever capacity you're in, just know that you probably, before you launch a show, you want to be at least maybe 4 weeks ahead because there's a lot of anticipated stuff. You don't want the pressure of, we don't have the show that's airing next week ready. You are setting yourself up for some problems because there's unforeseen stuff. So it's like driving it's like leaving flat tire time when you drive to the airport. It's the exact same thing. So as far as how long it takes to do production, initially a long time, but then once all the packages are built, all the graphics packages, and we get the flow of the show and we know how we're divvying it up and we know how we're making our meals, it can happen pretty fast.
Julianne. Yeah. And it's so like we're not trying to tell you a horror story. That's not the goal of what this is. Like the intention of what this conversation has been for me is that we want to show you pull back the curtain, because that's what Michael and I have been about since day one, is like, tell it like it really is, pull back the curtain, show the real, what's going on in the back. We do that in our standard podcast show. We did it all day today. That's why we do this live so that you can see exactly what this is. We want to talk about the show front to back, or what the whole thing's going to look like. And that it's not just, it's all not fluffy bunnies and rainbows to get this done. It's going to be dirty. We're going to wreck it. And that's how that's going to go. And the important
Jake's going to be the huggy one, and Michael's going to be the disciplinarian.
Yeah, exactly. You got to cast who's doing what. Plain and simple. We're going to get an AI model.
You're Simon, Michael. I don't know if you knew it, but you're going to be Simon in this.
Yeah, Michael's going to be Simon on. Yeah, and that's the trick, right? You've got to surround yourself with people that get your vision. You've got to surround yourself with people that get your vision. And that's where I want to, really give a lot of props to Peter and PKW Media. That's their superpower. Like, much like Joel said earlier, it's not about, it's the same concept. It's not about him. He wants to interview and find out what's best for your business. It's no different. It's the exact same thing with PKW Media. Let's tell the story you're forgetting you need to tell. Here's what it really looks like. This is you, and it's demonstrating that story. It's putting that front and center, and that's where this superpower has really come from with this partnership. And we've been super grateful.
And that's really what all business owners want to do in the end. They want people to know who they are and what they do. Because when you meet people in person or you get a direct referral, that's when you do business. So if video can serve that purpose and go even deeper than you go after 2 cocktails, even better.
Yeah, absolutely true. So Peter, how do the people reach you?
PKWMediaSolutions.com. I have my, if you show me full screen, they can scan it, but just write down, PKWMediaSolutions.com. And then I have a gift, but can I share my screen? Is that possible?
It should. We were struggling with that with Jen a little bit earlier, but you can definitely try to do it. I'm going to show you.
Well, it doesn't matter. If you go to pkmediasolutions.com and you communicate with me, I will be happy to send you the link to that and a lot of other stuff. I'm happy to give away knowledge.
Mention you saw us here. So he knows where the lead generations are coming from, where the lead flow is, what the follow-up's got to be.
Yep. And then, I work with Julianne a lot. So if you're working with her, a lot of the time you're working with me as well.
Yeah, I just altered the screen so the QR code is off.
There you go. Yeah, so that'll just take you right to my pkwmediasolutions.com. Thank you.
Love it.
So so I'm more than excited to be working on the show, and it's going to be crazy. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's already been plenty crazy. We are super stoked about where we're going and what we're playing with here, and we're excited about the partnerships and the rooms we're in. Great relationship.
Yeah, and if you think the price of admission isn't worth getting in front of millions of people, you are absolutely wrong. There's nothing more worth it than that kind of exposure.
100%. We say it all the time. Hopefully somebody's going to hear that.
All right, guys. Well, this has been great, and I'm really excited to work with the coaches and to work with the contestants. And we'll hit it running. We're hitting the green light. So I'm very excited about it.
Awesome.
Love it. Peter, thank you as always. Appreciate you. Have an amazing rest of your day.
PKW Media, everybody. Thanks again, Peter.